Hi, and welcome back to Reverse Shot. This is a show where we take a weekly look at the best and the worst in reporting. Yeah. Look, the election is over, and let's talk about the press and politics. We've got a lot to answer for during the last election cycle. Now, normally when we get criticized by both the right and the left, I kind of think we've done the right thing. I love it when I write an opinion piece, and both the left and the right tells me I'm nuts. I kind of think I hit my sweet spot. But in this case, they're right about a few things, and we're going to take a look at some of them. You're right, but you may not know why. And there's a key ingredient in all of this, and we'll explain all of that at the end. Now, let's take a look at this. Yeah, I'm talking about Elon Musk. As Oliver Darcy pointed out in his newsletter this week, Elon Musk sent a flurry of tweets blasting the press on Wednesday. He accused the legacy media of having lied relentlessly to the public, telling his followers on X, and I quote, and I'm going to read it, "You are the media now." The dark MAGA billionaire declared that, quote, "news should come from the people." Of course, it already does come from the people. More on that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at a moron who's easy to dispel and how we reported on that. Yes, we're talking about JD Vance. Take a look.
But you know something that Donald Trump will never do? Donald Trump will never go out there and say that his fellow citizens should be censored or silenced for disagreeing with him.
Donald Trump will never go out there and say that his fellow citizens should be censored or silenced for disagreeing with him. Horseshit. Trump threw people out of his rallies who disagreed with him. He threatened them. And in the case of free press reporters like myself and Jim Acosta, he tried to take away our press passes, and we had to defeat him in federal court in order to keep our press pass. So yes, he does try to stifle free speech. And we have been very poor in reporting that. Now let's go to Elon. Musk's X platform is suffering, and in some instances, people have fled it like it's a rotting corpse. Can't blame them because it's full of crap. But now he says X will be the real hub of journalism. Take a look.
This is really going to be the new model of news, which is to gather information from people who are at the scene, who are experts in the field, and summarize the experts in the field and people who are at whatever event's being talked about, and aggregate that into a real-time newsfeed. And I think for the most part that will be better than conventional journalism. We've got real-time aggregation of the collective wisdom of tens of millions of people. Although something may be said that is incorrect, it is very quickly corrected. Whereas a newspaper that is publishing, what happened yesterday, when you read the article, that article could be wrong, often is wrong, but there's no rebuttal to the article.
Okay, interviewing witnesses, that's journalism. We do that. We interview experts in the field. That's journalism. Summarizing the experts, well, that takes nuance and an editor and a reporter, not a curator. Real-time aggregation of the collective wisdom of tens of millions of people, well, you're just aggregating. That's not reporting. A reporter and an editor are necessary to be called a journalist and for journalism to occur. Now, it's easier to define an act of journalism than it is to define what a journalist or who a journalist is. So let's stick to that. Journalism cannot be committed unless it's a team effort. That's just a fact. Now, Elon knows nothing about journalism. He's never done it. I've been in the business for 40 years, and Elon, I'll make you a deal. I won't design rockets, and you keep your mouth shut about journalism because you know nothing about it. Finally, he says, newspapers don't correct their mistakes. Yeah, that's called an ombudsman, and we used to have them before the consolidation of the media and the cutting of staff. Yeah, we should have ombudsman. But you know what? Break up the media monopolies, diversify ownership, bring back the profit that is inherent in reporting vetted factual information, and voila, you could afford an ombudsman. Look, you want to see what passes for journalism on X? Take a look at this. That's right. That's a completely fabricated quote. As Raskin said, quote, designed to undermine our election. That's what you get if you cannot vet your facts, and that's what you get on X. Now, I'm all for free speech, and you can voice your opinions anywhere you want, but that's not journalism. Also, Elon, the pontificator, missed out on one of the bigger stories last week. It had to do with him. Apparently, according to people who work for him, they got herded into U-Haul vans. I'm not making this up. They were supposed to canvass voters without knowing why. Some of them were underpaid or unpaid and threatened with outrageous quotas. It happened in Michigan and Arizona in support of Donald Trump. Here's the story on Wired. Betcha that's one story Elon doesn't want us interviewing witnesses on. Hey, I give a laurel to the people at Wired for investigating and reporting that story. Good job. Finally, look, we've done something really wrong, and it happened at 3 publications: USA Today, Los Angeles Times, and Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post all failed to endorse a candidate for president when, in fact, 2 editorial boards had wanted to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. That's just journalistic cowardice. Now, Bezos defended him and his newspaper, the Washington Post, not endorsing a candidate, saying, hey, it's not going to sway a single voter in Pennsylvania. That's pretty arrogant to say that your reporting won't sway voters or your opinion won't. And more importantly, it just tells you how useless your newspaper is and how irrelevant it is. Let's take a look at the real facts. Look, when newspapers used to endorse candidates the right way, you had to go before an editorial board and get an interview. And then there was opposition research done. And the newspapers weighed the different people running for office and issued an opinion. And by the way, vetted factual information was used in order to endorse a candidate. And those candidates, if you endorse both right and left, both parties, people did make up their minds based on what was in a newspaper because they trusted the information. Today, with smaller staffs, you don't do it very well, and you can't trust them. And so all Bezos did was tell us his newspaper is dying. Look, to arrogantly assume that what you write doesn't affect an opinion is wrong as well. This is cowardice, folks. The Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, and USA Today are journalistic cowards. I worked for a newspaper, the Louisville Courier-Journal and Louisville Times, which did what I just said. And in fact, there were people that hated the Courier, specifically conservative people in the far eastern part of eastern Kentucky, and they hated the Courier. But by God, most people who ran for office and got an endorsement from the Courier would put that in their advertising because they knew it carried weight because they vetted the facts and the politicians. Meanwhile, this week there was another big story about problems in journalism. Lawrence O'Donnell, who anchors Last Call, recently spoke in an interview to Salon's senior critic about a problem central to journalism. Salon earns a laurel for reporting this. Take a look. I want to quote this. Quote, political interviewers now are not in the business of illumination. They are in the business of impressing the other people who do political interviews. That's the most important audience to them. They don't care about the 2 or 3 million people who are actually watching on TV. They care primarily about other people who do this for a living, because those are the people who issue their report cards within the business. Beautifully said, well spoken, and a laurel to both O'Donnell and Last Call and Salon. So, how do we get better journalism? Well, for one, we do need editors. That's the big thing. I'm fine with Elon Musk pontificating all he wants. I can handle political interviews and the interviewers shooting off their mouth. But I'm tired of opinion masquerading as fact. Don't tell me what to think. Give me the facts and let me think for myself. And both the right and the left agree with this. And that is the problem. We have just decimated the staffs in newspapers and in television news. And so you don't have the people doing that job anymore. To get where we need to get, we need editors looking over your shoulder. That's a fact. So that brings us to Chief White House Correspondent and Editor-at-Large from CQ Roll Call, John T. Bennett, and we had a conversation with him about the need for editors to edit. Take a look. Hi, and welcome back to Reverse Shot. I am your host, Brian Karem. And, you know, we were talking before the break about some of the problems of the media, and so I've invited a wonderful young man to come and talk to us with a lot of experience as the senior White House correspondent for CQ Roll Call. He is also an editor-at-large, and he understands some of the problems that we've talked about in the media. John Bennett. John, thanks for joining me. And full disclosure, you can catch us every week on Just Ask the Press. But here's the question, and you have done this for a while. You understand the problems that we face. How can, I talk often about, I like the idea of there being independent media on social media, but you can't really call yourself a reporter, I don't think, without having at least a copy editor to ask you the important questions of your copy. Where'd this source come from? What is this? What is that? How did you spell that? How did you get that? That's what you think and not what you know, so we're going to cross that out. Your thoughts. I wanted to hit, because I could go on for hours, but I know you have specific thoughts about that.
I'm sure you could. And I know you've run newspapers in the DMV area, multiple newspapers. And I can't imagine doing that as someone who doesn't want to manage, who has managed, and it didn't take for me. But as a reporter who tries to be really productive, I can't be perfect all the time. And my team editor, whoever he or she might happen to be, they're not going to catch everything. So, copy editors are very important.
That's the basics. That's basic stuff.
Well, now it's basic stuff, but copy editors as a reporter, as I am,
I hate them
now. Yeah, they drive me crazy, but they also catch stuff.
Yeah.
And we have at CQ Roll Call, we have some very good copy editors, and they catch things that I kind of mischaracterize or describe a little wrong, or, I might get a year wrong. And
right.
Like Trump said this in 2016, but he actually said it in 2017, and they catch it, and and it makes our product a lot better. So I hear you, and I know as someone who edited and managed community newspapers, I can imagine that when your copy editors miss stuff, you heard it.
Oh yes, but see, that's the thing. Everyone online wants to call themselves an independent journalist.
Well, now everyone's a copy editor, right?
Yeah, but they have no copy editors. I'm talking about those on social media who call themselves independent journalists, who write what they think, and mazel tov to them, God bless them. But to call yourself a reporter, everyone needs at least one person over your shoulder asking you about your facts and making you verify what it is that you've said.
Yeah, I think what I've had in my career is where your team editor edits you, and other people have had the team editor is just kind of doing a substance edit. But at other places that I've worked, you get both at once.
Copy editor or a team editor.
I can say as someone, I was always a team editor, and full disclosure, I wasn't the best team editor. I was there for substance and does the story read right, and are recasting it. And yes, I needed a copy editor to come behind me for all the things
grammar,
that you're
style,
talking about. Yeah. I was there for the sourcing, casting it right at the top, getting the lead right, and yes, I needed a copy editor to come behind me and then do the fact checking. Is this quite right? And then the copy editor said, well, I just saw this. Was this 2023 or was it 2022? And maybe the reporter and I missed it because we were so worried about the lead and working so hard on the lead that, once we got to that point, we missed it. And that's really the value of copy editors. That's what they do.
Yeah, and that's a value of it. And you've just broken down what, a city editor or a team editor versus a copy editor. Both of them are necessary. You have to have at least one editor over your shoulder. At least one.
Oh, yeah.
And
at least two.
Yeah, two would be nice. We see a lot of publications that don't anymore. But that, you do need more eyes on. And, I can't tell you the number of times I had reporters come to me and go, hey, this is what I think. And I'd go, I don't give a shit what you think. I barely care what I think. What do you know? What are vetted facts? And that remains the coin of the realm. And that's where I maintain where our credibility is. And that's where you have to rest. And today it's a lot of, you look on television and I see, a lot of, hey, the anchor goes, well, what do you think's going on out there? Well, this is what I think is going on out there. I think you're thinking right. And they're talking about what they think and never giving me the facts. And I always say, quit telling me what to think. I'll think what I want to think. What are the facts? Which is what we hold reporters to. Yes? That's the idea anyway.
Yeah, I think especially with TV, and I've never been a TV reporter. I have a face for podcasts, and I have a face for radio.
Full disclosure, I have been on television. Dun, dun, dun.
Luckily, my wife doesn't agree. But, what I see, especially with television, is rushing it to broadcast. And what we do here, especially where I work at CQ Roll Call, is we're still vetting everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's frustrating. And I had a thing. I'll tell you today, and the TV networks were reporting that President Biden will address the country on, I guess, Thursday about the election, and I tried to get it confirmed with the White House, and I got nothing. And I wrote back and I said, "Oh, so you're just giving it to the TV networks?"
Right.
And again, no response. So again, what we get here on the print side is increasingly we're undervalued, and maybe that's for good reason. And that gives me a lot of worry as a print reporter coming up. It just seems like it's going to get harder and harder to be a print reporter. But that's the basis. But that's what's in the Constitution. Yeah, that's what's in the Constitution. But man, it's getting harder and harder to do what we do.
Yes, it is. And so that brings me to the last question for the day. How do you think we've done as reporters covering this particular election?
It's a great question. I think the polls hit it about right, and I think there was a lot of wishful thinking. I know I said on the podcast that we do every week, Just Ask the Press, a couple weeks ago, that I sensed a red ripple, and then Trump had a really bad week. And he and Kamala Harris, the vice president, Democratic nominee, neither of them closed very well. And I thought that would mean that the polls would close for the vice president, and boy, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So how did the media do in the closing arguments? I mean, I think we got it about right. We got it wrong because we were going on the polls.
Right. But do you think that we rely on polls too much in reporting? All right. So here's the criticism: we gave Donald Trump too much. We gave him too much credibility. That's what the Harris people say. Then on the right, they say we gave Harris way too much and Donald Trump was always better than her, and then those who have, I can't imagine you're being undecided, but there are those who said that it was a false equivalency and that we gave, we compared them to as if they were both the same. And as a reporter, I always go, if I've pissed off both sides, I'm doing something right. But because now I've got you both mad. So to that extent, but do you think how would you want to improve coverage of politics in this country? What do we need to do better?
Boy, Brian, that's a good question. I
try every once in a while, John, you know.
I spent a couple days in Bucks County, Pennsylvania,
Yes.
which is one of the collar counties of Philly. It's always swing districts, swing counties up there. And, Brian, folks were not very welcoming to me, but the folks who would talk to me, it was very split. And that just, it just backed up what the polls were showing. And
But let me ask you about that, not being very friendly. The thing I hear from people is that we're just not credible, that we don't do what we're supposed to.
They didn't want to talk to me because they didn't trust me. And they didn't trust the media. And you do your reporter thing, and I got just enough people to talk to me, including, and I want to give a shout out to my man Bill the contractor in Newtown, Pennsylvania. He was awesome. He was the most welcoming, and he reminded me of my own father. He was in his mid-70s, had his own business, told me all about it, and we stood and chatted outside a post office. But he was the only one that was really welcoming. They don't trust us. This is a problem. Brian. I think you might be going here. Is people don't trust us.
Yeah.
People don't trust the media. People viewed me as an outsider. They viewed me as a pariah. They viewed me as an enemy. The amount of stares I got, the amount of bad looks, they knew what I was doing. They saw my notebook. People I approached, it's like, I don't know what we've done. I'll say this. I've said it on Just Ask the Press. I'll say it here. I've said it elsewhere. It's a friggin' miracle that we can get a story posted amongst ourselves. We can't be a part of any conspiracy because we're arguing amongst ourselves about this lead or this video package. We can't be a part of any conspiracy. We can't get anything posted.
Well, that's, they do think that we're, either in the pocket of George Soros or in the pocket of Elon Musk.
Right.
Or
the
in
Murdochs.
the pocket of Trump or in the pocket of Biden. And they attribute to us quite nefarious.
I would like to see what's in Joe Biden's pockets other than 2 peppermints and a cough drop. And a tissue, maybe.
Yeah, so, we get accused of that, of being part and parcel part of the problem. And so I maintain that that's our problem, not communicating what we do very well. It's a communication problem.
Well, I think so. I think you're right. I think you're seeing the same thing, and Donald Trump's going back to the White House, and certainly it's not our fault, but you see that in the Biden White House. We're getting blamed tonight for Donald Trump going back to the White House, and we didn't report X, Y, or Z. I think we reported that Joe Biden was having trouble speaking. I certainly reported it.
We all did.
And I'm not mad at Joe Biden, and I have a father who's in his late 70s. I'm not mad at Joe Biden. I think there's a very credible way of thinking about it that maybe Joe Biden shouldn't have announced that he was running for president again.
Yeah. I thought he was only going to run once.
But again, we were asking those questions a year and a half ago.
Yes.
You and I were in the briefing room.
You and I were asking those questions.
Right.
So
and he chose
I'm
to
not
run
taking a
again.
hit on that one, baby.
No, we shouldn't. We were asking those questions a year and a half ago, and he chose to run anyway. And yet today, somehow, we're still taking those hits as the media, and it just blows me away. We were asking those questions
And reporting them. And people,
and
so at the end of the day,
reporting when he was having trouble speaking a
Yes.
year ago. We were reporting that.
yeah. So tied up with this, we'd like to see if you're going to call yourself a reporter, you got to have an editor, at least one. Yes. And if
Well,
you're
at
going
least
to, yeah, and if you're going to report,
At least one.
yeah, at least one. Otherwise, you're printing an opinion, and that's fine. But just don't call yourself the new media. You're the new. Yeah, I mean, you can put yourself on, and I welcome it. Internet, put your opinions out there. But to call yourself a reporter, you've got to have an editor, and that's probably one of the most important things that we need to let people know. And you need to know how to critically look at newspaper and online articles and look to see if there is an editor. Look to see who's on the masthead. Find out more about a publication before you trust it. There are, legacy projects on the CQ Roll Call's been around for a while. Good legacy product. Time Magazine. Well, I won't give them. But there are others that have been there for a while. You trust those first because they have the infrastructure needed to be good reporting. So, thanks, John. I wanted to clear that up, and I love talking about presidential politics.
Can I add some great editors that I've had? Vargo Murati in the Defense News, Dave Brown at Defense News, the late, great Steve Comereau, God rest his soul, at CQ Roll Call, Adriel Bettelheim, Jason Dick, currently my editor, Herb Jackson. The list goes on, but I've had a lot of good editors. Those are my best editors.
Yeah. See, and you remember your good editors because they challenge you and they make you do better work.
And they make you better, and all of them did. And thanks to those guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the time, man. We'll catch you next time. Want to thank you for joining us at Reverse Shot. Stay tuned, stay informed, and tune in here weekly as we give you the best and worst of journalism. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please sign up for our newsletter. Look, we're going to get down to it. We want to keep you informed. We promise to try our best to do so. I got no heckle fish over my shoulder, but, we will have fun. Catch you next time.